Hello, this is Helen Chin Lu. I am a certified reflexologist and a certified energy medicine practitioner. I am the owner and also the founder of the Healing Place in Medfield, Mass. Today, I am so excited to be able to do my first live Facebook chat. And the subject that we want to talk about is how do we condition ourselves to ignore pain? I decided to do this four-part series when a number of my clients asked me to help teach them how to understand what pain is, where it lives, and how to break it up. So by doing this four-part series, I want to share some information that could be helpful to you to recognize your pain. Let me tell you a little bit about my background. I've been a professional reflexologist since 2006. I work with clients of all ages, men, women, children, and even babies to help break the pain cycle of chronic digestive issues, chronic pain, and also help a lot of women and even men to balance their hormones. So as I start to talk to people, I have this really passion in sharing knowledge. As much as I love to teach people in my office, but it's time to spread the news and just share with people what they could do on their own if they can't come all the way to Medfield, Massachusetts. Just a little bit tell you about my background. I have, I would say, 800 hours of specialized reflexology. So between the foot, the ear, the hands, advanced digestive, I do pediatric. I even work on dogs' feet, my puppies who was not in my room right this minute. I have also, I understand energy medicine, and I attended a 3-year program with Reese Thomas here in Massachusetts, and I'm also a Reiki teacher and a Reiki practitioner. So I combine, when I do healing work, all of my modalities. And how did I get into this work? People will always want to know, how did I develop this passion for sharing knowledge? Well, it started off with my children who were sick. When they were little, unfortunately, we had a lot of health issues in my family. So from chronic ear infections to digestive issues to skin issues. I am one of those people that was brought up to believe that doctors know everything. So one of the things I decided to do with my children is, obviously, traditional medicine has its place, but I also learned traditional medicine does not necessarily have all the answers. So one of the things that I have learned to do is learn how to I would say use my intuition to see if I could seek another another route in helping my kids. At the time, I would say 30 years ago, the only option at the time was just medication. Nobody knew anything about alternative healing. So through the blessings of friends and the universe sending me the right people, I've learned that we could tap into our own ability to self-heal. And so one of the things that I want to discuss today is pain. Pain. I have my little cheat note because there's so much that I want to share, and I learned I only have 19 minutes to talk about this. So one of the things that I want to talk about, how did we start to ignore pain? Believe it or not, a lot of times we were brought up to ignore our pains. So, for example, if we have things that ail us and we're not feeling well, so we end up going to our parents, and our parents more times than not would just say, hush, don't worry, your pain will go away. So your pain has to be so severe before parents will take note and do something about it. So as parents will always, and they do it a lot of times, because why they tell you to squish your pain tolerance or elevate them is because more times than not, we're trying to teach our children to distinguish what is real pain and what is not. So one of the things that, so we've conditioned ourselves from little kids into our adulthood how to treat pain. And more times than not, most of us will say, hey, I don't feel bad enough to go see the doctor. And then all of a sudden, one day you notice the pain that starts to get worse. And then all of a sudden there's an alarm that goes off in your head and say, hey, I got to do something about this, and I got to do something about it now. So we end up scrambling to try to address what goes on. And always we get really nervous about, oh, what if the pain is worse than what we think? Maybe it's something that maybe I don't want to address, because what if it is something that is scary? And let's face it, today there is so much illness out there. And even though we try to do things to prevent illnesses from beginning, and we know and understand what is physical pain. But a lot of time, in addition to physical pain, we also have emotional pain and spiritual pain. And people ask me, well, what is that? What is emotional pain? Well, the emotional pain comes from not only what you have in your head, but also how do you store your pain. People think pain goes away. And what I've learned from doing all my years of practice, pain never goes away. In fact, it stacks in our body. And what I try to do is to help people who come to me to distinguish what is the pain that is the root of this. Even though I would love to see people come and see me at my office, and one of the things that I'm really passionate about is teaching people to connect to the pain, understand their pain, and also eventually let the pain go. Because one thing I notice, when we ignore pain, it never goes away. In fact, it stacks, as I mentioned earlier. And as the pain starts to stack up, eventually it explodes because the pain has nowhere to go. So it manifests into physical illnesses. And I always say, everybody have what I call defective DNA. I don't care who you are. As good as our parents are, our grandparents, so forth and so on, we inherit things through the previous generation, which all lives inside of us in our DNA. And the thing I always talk about is what activates that defectiveness. And more times than not, I would say stress is one of the biggest culprits that will activate illnesses. Plus, ignoring our emotions is another way, unfortunately, will activate it, because I find that most people end up being a walking time bomb. So, anyways, and especially for those people, I would say, who live primarily in the past, there's people who live in the past, in the present, and in the future. I would say most women live in the future because we're always constantly thinking about what we have to do next. The people who live in the past, you probably know who they are very well, because those are the people who, I call them, not necessarily the complainers, but they'll point things out to you that what you have done to them a decade ago, and they're still rehashing the same story. So what happens is that pain, that emotional pain, becomes stuck on a cellular level. So, and then the spiritual pain. Well, spirituality, I am not talking about organized religion. I'm talking about how connected are you to the universe. Some people call it God. Or how well are you connected to yourself? So that means, what kind of life do you live? Is it really mindful? Or perhaps you live a very robotic life. And people ask me, what does that mean? Well, when you live a robotic life, that usually means you know exactly what you're going to do every single day. And unfortunately, when you live on that type of schedule, people are not present in their body. They're already thinking, what do I have to do next? And where do I need to go? And in fact, most people can even tell you what they do every single day and pretty much at the same hour every single week, which is good and bad. So a lot of times they're not built what I call for flexibility. So if someone throws a wrench into their schedule, and also you go, how do I deal with that? So again, that type of anxiety and anxiousness gets stuck on a cellular level, especially if that's something if you're not equipped to handle. So I talk to clients about what they could do to break up their lives so they could introduce new events and try different things. Hey, I'm going to take a sip here. My throat gets kind of dry when I'm doing these types of talk, especially if it's long. And there's a lot of things I would like to teach. And I learned that I have 19 minutes, and I don't have a clock in front of me. So if I end up getting cut off, it's not because I'm done, but since this is my first live chat, and I'm trying to find the right place in my house, and all of a sudden it says to me, I have a weak connection. So I'm like, oh my gosh, and I wasn't prepared to move like I did. So I'm lost without a clock. So if someone could just let me know, I'd probably be on for 8:20 if you could just let me know what time it is from time to time so I could stay on track. So anyways, let's go on to why do we ignore pain? Well, I don't necessarily, as we start to feel the pain within us, I don't know if it's necessarily we actually ignore it. Why? Well, the problem is, I shouldn't call it a problem. So many of us who have experienced pain through our lives, we've learned to condition ourselves to overcome pain. I love sharing this one story about a client who deprived himself of eating. He's not a big eater. See, I'm a foodie. I live to eat, and some people live, is that the right way of expressing it? I just love food. So people who follow me on Facebook tells me, oh my gosh, look at all the food you make. Yes, my family and I, we are foodies, so we enjoy good food. So the way I cook, just to be off track, I gotta, depending on what's in my refrigerator, that's what I cook. So anyways, coming back to my buddy, Josh, he said to me, I really can't eat. I really don't want to eat. I don't want to make time to eat. Here's a man with tremendous amount of digestive issue. And he said to me one day, when I start to eat, Helen, I can't stop. And I'm feeling his energy. And I said, do you really want to know why you can't stop? And he said, yes. Well, the reason why is your body has no idea when it's going to have its next meal. So what it's trying to do is hoard as much food as possible. So because like a camel, you don't know when you're going to go to the water next time. So he says, that's interesting. And he again, this is a guy that could easily skip and not eat for 48 hours. Hopefully he's drinking water. I don't know. But the point is, his body has no idea when it's going to eat next. So it's trying to hoard as much food. So what do we do when we have pain? Well, a lot of times, most of us have, I would say, a high threshold, especially if we experience a lot of pain. We get to the point we no longer acknowledge it. So there's a disconnect in the brain, and the body wants to do something about it. But what happens a lot of times, there's something going on in the circuits that is, I would say, confused, and it doesn't know what to do. So as a reflexologist, what I do to help clients more times than not is I help them to reconnect the circuits again. That's primarily what I do. I just push buttons. I'm either the button pusher, as my young clients call me, I'm also the poopy pusher, because I have a lot of little kids that come to me with digestive issues. And I'm like, you know what? That's not a bad title to have, to be called a poopy pusher. And that's what I do, because what I basically do is just reboot the body again. So all the circuits are understand what it needs to do in order to function. So I'm like, yes, we could do this. So as we take medication, medication, I mean, I'm a, I'm a great believer in traditional medicine. Don't get me wrong. Traditional medicine has its place. But unfortunately, traditional medicine is very one-sided. So they don't necessarily look at the spirit and the mind. To me, in my opinion, in the 10 years I've been doing this, I think it's excruciatingly important that you connect all the dots, because the body could work, but if your spirit is not there, there's a missing component, because your energy is just, I would say, even more important than your physical health. Because if you don't have the energy to begin with, you don't have the energy to overcome the, I would say, defectiveness or the illnesses that come into your body. I mean, I could go on forever and talk about all the various subjects that will keep you healthy, but I figure I start with just understanding what pain's about. So pain masks what's going on with you. So if the body was confused to begin with, you wait until you have to take medication to overcome your pain. Your body becomes so confused, and what's worse, it's forgotten what to do on its own before the illnesses came, because your body has the capability to self-heal. But again, it just has forgotten, or it's lost its way, or I think of it this way, there's a disconnect. So, it needs a little help. And I truly, sincerely believe anyone could activate their self-healing. When my children were sick, particularly I have two sons. One son, he went from a physical illness to an emotional illness. And the doctor at the time, as being a young teenager, said, well, we could correct this through medication. Or I shouldn't say correct it, probably could help alleviate the symptoms. That's the best way of saying it, alleviate the symptoms. And, basically what he was telling me, this doctor, was he will never be a fully functioning person. Well, for those people who know me, they know me well. I'm feisty. I'm only 5'2", and I don't follow the tradition. I don't fall into the stereotype being a traditional Chinese woman. I'm little. I got a mouth. I'm very kind right now, so I won't go into what I can do and say. So I told the man, listen, buddy, I know him better than you do. I know him from his soul. What you're telling me is what's on a piece of paper. Yes, it has some information, but it is not an end all. This is really important that I want to teach people. This is not, and I would call it, I guess I could have viewed it as a death sentence for my son when he said to me he would never be a fully functioning person. He would never go on to college. He would never, all the nevers. Well, you know what? As of today, not only is he a fully functioning person, he's planning to go on to school. He's planning a life where he could be of service to other people in a traditional setting. And if I listened to that doctor and believed what he said, I wonder where would he be today. So this in a way is, there's something in our gut that tells us what is true and what is not true. It's just a matter of, do you have the faith to believe what is in your heart and in your gut? And most importantly, what are you going to do to make those changes? And yes, I think about my favorite saying. Somebody asked me, what is your favorite saying, during one of radio shows that I did last weekend? And I thought about it for a quick second. My favorite one that was taught to me by a buddy was, what is the definition of madness? The answer is when you do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. So anyways, you have to make a change. So one of the things that I usually start with clients who come to me is we do what I call an FU, and you know what the F means, everybody, an FU journal, and to start discovering what we are angry about. And from there, as you start to discover who you are and what you are, you'll be able to see where you are stuck, or when you started to become stuck, and you could start to override all those, mental blockages you have here, because it's really here. Because once we truly believe that we are stuck, we stay stuck until somebody snaps you out of it, and hopefully it's somebody who loves you enough, who's not in the same pain cycle, or I was talking to someone the other day, and depending on who you feel comfortable with, that could tell you their shade, or view you as an individual, not view you as your sickness, you could start to break your pain cycle. Anyway, so one of the things I want you to start is, if you decide to do this with me, start an FU journal. Anything and everything that you are angry about, I want you to get on a computer. I don't care where you write this. This is really for your eyes only. And see where you're mad. And then what we're going to do is, the thing that I want you to do is start to journal. That's a great way of starting. Anyways, I want to tell you about my other classes, because somebody's telling me I have a couple minutes left before they shut me down. Hopefully, you would think I remember what I have written, even though everything that you see on my Facebook I have written. I have such limited memory because I am more in the present moment. I don't study any of my things that I've written. So next week, next Monday, I want to talk to you more about how pain gets stuck. And what I would like to do is start talking about helping you to locate the pain. And then the following Monday, on the 10th, I want to talk about some mindful practices to quiet the pain by uniting the body, the mind, and the spirit. And lastly, on October 10th, I'd like to talk about how to make friends with your pain, because your pain has a lesson. In the meantime, there's a couple of things I want to let you know that I'm doing. I'm planning to also develop classes to go into the chakras more, understand the chakras, what are their functions. I got a whole bunch of things that I want to start sharing with people. They will be probably a paid class, because I figured, 10 years of accumulated knowledge, it's a good time to start sharing. And one of the things that, if you would like to know what I'm doing, you can always sign up for my newsletter. And if you sign up at, I'm going to put it in the link below after this is done, I'm going to send to you a chakra balancing meditation that I have made for those people who want to start practicing and understanding their chakras. And for those people who don't know what chakras are, we have 7 main energy centers that's located in our spine, all the way to the top of our heads. And we also have 21 minor chakras. So when I was in energy medicine school, in the 3 years I was there, we only had time to talk about just the 7 main chakras. And in fact, we even ran out of time. There was so much more to learn that I just couldn't, the teacher just ran out of time. So I hope today's session will give you some thoughts. So just to summarize quickly, I want you to start thinking about when you started to ignore your pains. Think about the voices who told you that, if you ignore it long enough, it will go away. Unfortunately, that's never the case. The pain always lives within us until we learn how to let it go. 2, if you're inclined to do this, and I think it's a great practice, start a FU journal. In fact, I have one. I don't enter as much as I used to, but when I started my business 10 years ago, I had a lot of entries. Believe me, there was a lot of FUs in there at the time. All right. So just email, text me, whatever you like to do to stay in connection. And I really enjoyed this time. I hope I didn't talk your ears off. But just again, I'm just bursting with just wanting to share and to help you to recognize you are not your pain. I really want you sincerely to believe that you can do something about it. I believe it sincerely with all of my heart that you could be the person you choose to be. Thank you, and I will talk to you next Monday. So long. Bye-bye.